Perfect. I should have done this before, actually. I have questions, as you know, to
Sure.
you. I, as you know, work on a book about the role of Germany in the dissolution of Yugoslavia, because there's this narrative that in certain circles, American left-wing, Serbian right-wing, other right-wing, that Germany destroyed Yugoslavia by the so-called premature recognition of Slovenia.
And Genscher as the main architect, right?
Exactly. Genscher as the main architect of the demise of Yugoslavia, which is something I never believed, not because I think as a German journalist I should defend German foreign policy. I don't see this at all. You have just seen how critical I am, and I'm very often on the record being critical of what Germany is doing now. But in 1991, it's just, this is not the case. Yeah. And I went to the German archives to see, what do the documents say after they were declassified 30 years after, and basically it all confirmed what I thought before, but in a very interesting way, which is why I decided to do the book. But I'm trying to put more context into it. And of course, Kosovo is a part of it. There is this book by Azem Vlasi, who, in the Croatian version, which I read, is called Početak raspada, the beginning of the dissolution, and he makes a very strong case to say it all began here.
Yeah.
I think it's convincing. And I'm very interested in what happened in Kosovo in the last year of Yugoslavia's formal existence, which was 1991.
Yeah.
And there's this famous meeting in, I hope I get the name right, I can never remember, Stubiçke
Toplice,
yeah.
Right.
And you were there.
Yes.
So I understand, and now I would like you tell me, is this correct, and can you go more into detail?
Yeah.
I understand that there was this idea, but I don't know whose initiative it was, to open a second front.
Yeah.
So basically Albanians also taking up arms, which would be perfect for Croatia, but probably not so perfect for Albanians. But please tell me about this meeting.
Okay, and as you know, I'm writing about it, and I have a tight deadline by the end of this year
by your sister. I hope she will be strict.
Yes.
If you listen to us, be strict to your brother.
And so the basic idea was it came from President Tudjman, although we should not have known about it. But so the idea was to open a southern front, as it was called in Croatia. President Tudjman consulting with some of his generals,
Spiegel,
probably. I don't know, but in any case, it got to a point at which our representative in Croatia, or the representative of the LDK in Croatia, was an ex-military.
Who was that?
Colonel Berisha.
Tom Berisha.
Tom Berisha, yeah. So he gave the suggestion that we convene there. And I was one of the advocates that we do convene. We had at the time the Association of Political Parties of Albanians of ex-Yugoslavia. So all the parties, Albanians from ex-Yugoslavia, met in Stubiçke Toplice.
So it was not only Kosovo, it was also Ulcinj and Tetovo.
And Tetovo and the rest, and Prešov Valley.
We are talking about what month?
It's January 1991.
January already, okay.
Yeah. And so we met there, surrounded by Croatian special police protecting us.
Mm-hmm. How secret was this? I mean,
it was supposed to be secret, and it's a long story, but a lot came out afterwards. But in any case, it was a debate that was developed in which Rugova became a minority in that debate in the first days. So there were more people wanting to go to war, and I, who had been a nonviolent advocate and was a bit critical of Rugova for being too passive, saw that this was moving in a totally different direction.
You were there, sorry, in what capacity?
I was one of the members of this organization of political parties. I was one of the party leaders.
But you were not, excuse my ignorance, in LDK?
No, I was not. I was in something called, it was a student movement that became a political party, the youth parliament they later renamed the parliamentary party. And so we moved into that meeting with the idea that my initial suggestion was that we structure a decision-making process, a more integrated decision-making process that would take us into what was evidently the dissolution of Yugoslavia.
Sorry to interject one more time. This was obviously not a one-day meeting.
No, it was a 2-day meeting with a dinner before that in which we discussed many things.
But you came together only this one time in January, or you had follow-up meetings?
We had meetings before, but this was the first time that we were in that format. And so we discussed very much about this. There were pushes to actually, go publicly and say we're raising arms and things like that, or organizing shipments from here or there of arms. There was a clear promise from the Croatians that if we would be willing to engage, they would help us with support in arms.
But they didn't have themselves enough.
There were ways. I mean, it was easier to ship. The idea was to ship via Albania into Kosovo. So it became a big debate about many things that were very scary at the time, especially involving Albania. And so some of us were very vociferous in not going in that direction and not going into war. And we explained why we shouldn't be going into war, not only because of our nonviolent convictions, but how geopolitically and geostrategically that would not function, and how militarily that would not function.
Can you go into detail? Why would it not function geopolitically, and why not militarily?
Well, because we did not have any political support for our political platform. So
it would have actually cost you support.
It would have cost us support. B, and we got sympathy because of our nonviolent movement. B, we had all the structures of the reserves and of the Yugoslav army. In the past 5 years, no Albanian was called to reserve exercises.
Oh, by the way, I would like to have one more question here.
Sure.
I read the memoirs of Martin Špegel.
Yeah.
Highly interesting. Not always when generals write memoirs. Most of the time they're not interesting. His are an exception. Really very instructive. And somewhere I remember reading that each republic had, next to the JNA, the Yugoslav army, had a territorial defense unit. But Kosovo didn't.
It did, but it was somehow taken over by the Milosevic regime. So we had a territorial reserve, but once Milosevic came, he saw that as a threat, and there were no Albanians participating in territorial defense.
Well, from Milosevic's point of view, correct.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. So we didn't have a structured territorial defense the way the Slovenes, Croats.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted you, but
no. The second, we did not have a police structure that could have been transformed into military,
like the Croats,
like the Croats, the Slovenes, even the Bosnians used, and so none of these were elements that we could use in building a military structure. Our recruits were dispersed throughout Yugoslavia. Almost 20% of the recruits in ex-Yugoslavia were Albanians, ethnic Albanians, of which a big number were Kosovar Albanians. So there were many things to think about. The fourth element is involving Albania into this business at the moment of its extraordinary weakness. At the time when it was very difficult to find food in Albania, let alone,
the state was basically falling apart.
It was falling apart. So we would be helping actually in disintegrating Albania as such, or at least that was the thinking of the time, And we were all young and inexperienced, so we were thinking, look, history has brought us in. It's nothing that we were searching for.
So you, Rugova, for example, were basically, I understand, saying this is an adventure that we will not go into, which to me makes complete sense. Yeah. Can you, after so many years, mention which leaders said, oh, let's go for it?
It will be in the book, but there were people, especially from the most vociferous people were people from North Macedonia and from Montenegro. And they were saying, Kosovo, you guys start the war, we will follow. We should start. And there was an episode in which Lazar Krasniqi, who was the head of the Albanian Christian Democratic Party, said, I have more members in my party than you in Montenegro have Albanians and chicken together. And so it was a very intensive atmosphere at the time. Fortunately, it was closed in such a way. President Tudjman never actually pardoned Rugova for that.
Never actually?
Pardoned Rugova for that. Never.
Can you, in which way?
He held a grudge against Rugova for a long time.
Interesting. It's understandable why Tudjman wanted this, because he wouldn't lose anything. He would only gain.
Sure.
You said it was his idea, Tudjman's idea, around, did I understand?
We thought it was his.
Well, how did you come to meet? Obviously, you couldn't meet in Kosovo, but was there this is not something where you have an official invitation. This is about...
No. This was all coordinated between us and Colonel Berisha at the time.
But did he tell you? I discussed it with Tudjman.
He discussed it with the authorities. Look, we had very good contacts with Croatia, and Croatia was very helpful to us.
Even in 91?
Even in 91, they were very, very helpful. And there was a special relationship with the Croats because many of them had spent jail time with Adem Demaci. And so when Demaci went out of jail, many of his friends from jail were actually very supportive of us. Many of us, I myself included, we got passports in Croatia so we could travel. There were many forms of support.
How would you, in 1991, travel with the Croatian passport?
It was a Yugoslav passport.
Of course, it was Yugoslav.
But printed in Croatia with
And
Croatian.
you could freely use the Belgrade airport with it, or would you prefer not to?
No, we would prefer not to, of course.
Because I have among the documents I found in the German Foreign Ministry is one where the German embassy in Belgrade, which was in a kind of a not so good relation with the German General Consulate in Zagreb, one person, let his name be skipped here now, who later played a certain role in German diplomacy, was complaining, saying, we heard that Ibrahim Rugova prefers to initiate his contacts to Germany, meaning Bonn, via the consulate in Zagreb, and this must be a mistake because we are in charge. Is this correct? And then the answer came from Bonn, no, it's not a mistake, you heard correctly. Yeah. Mr. Rugova, let's say, issued this wish, and we, for good reasons, decided to...
Yes, it was impossible to keep a relationship at the time. Our last meeting with German diplomats was with the ambassador Eif, before he retired, and the last event that Ambassador Eif was, we invited us to the Aspen Institute in Berlin. Asim Blasi and myself went there at the time.
Okay. Well, as I